Previously on agentpalmer.com, Suellen has all the dirt on the American pursuit of cleanliness, a look back at 2022, and those compilation episodes are more work than the average episode, but they're just as fun. This is the Palmer Files, episode 88, with Christopher J. Hughes, returning for his third time. The first was for friendship, the second was for celebration, and now he's here to discuss the movie he made, They Sleep on Us. And I helped. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 88th episode is Christopher J. Hughes, a friend, a collaborator, an editor, and now a movie maker. The movie, They Sleep on Us, is a documentary about the Lackawanna College Falcons football team and their journey through the days leading up to the 2019 National Junior College Athletic Association Championship in Pittsburgh, Kansas, against three-time champions Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. What you are about to hear is how Chris created this documentary and what this documentary means to him. This is a process story, but it's also inspirational. In full disclosure, as you'll soon learn, I helped on this film, but the sentiment of both Chris and myself is the same throughout this conversation and our regular lives. If we can do this, so can you. You will hear us discuss the feeling of finishing the film, being at your own movie premiere, one-off projects versus ongoing projects, learning from our mistakes, what's next, and more. Before we get going, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all contact information for Chris and myself in the show notes. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, it's time to get things started. So you made a movie, huh?
Yeah, who let me do that? It's still hard to believe it's done. It really is.
Well, I mean, it'll be released to the world eventually, but for now, let's go with the big thing, right? Like, yes. I was up with you at the end of October of last year, and we saw it
with other people.
Well, with other people, but on the big screen. So I guess
on a big screen.
So
yeah.
And I know you saw it with differently, also on a big screen, but like for me. Right. In this process, as people will learn, like I watched most of this movie through a Discord on your screen. Like I always saw this through your eyes, basically.
Yeah.
So,
God bless you. And you stuck with me.
The theater.
Yeah.
With your family and your friends and members of the coaching staff.
And the college community, so the Lackawanna College community, there were a couple folks there as well. Even some folks from my current job, with the city of Scranton. So there was definitely some folks there.
And I was across the aisle from you, and I know we locked eyes at certain points throughout the movie, but like
a couple of key points that we love.
But you were sitting there, and obviously the first big moment. No spoilers here, because this is just the way films are done, is a Christopher J. Hughes film. On the big screen, sitting next to your family that has just heard, I'm in my office trying to make a movie for the last years. So what is that, just that moment, like a Christopher J., bigger, as big as your house is right there with your name on it.
I could cry right now thinking about it. I'm like, you're looking at me. I'm like getting choked up just thinking about it. It's wild. It's, and it's wild for so many reasons. Like, I think that for me, this project, They Sleep on Us, was like an albatross for almost like 3 years, right? I made a trailer. I think the trailer was December of 2020. So like a year after this whole thing, like I made a trailer. And the funny thing is, like, as we were leading up, somebody in the film said to me, "Oh, you should cut another trailer." And I was like, I can't make a better trailer. Like, I gave you the best trailer I could when I was making it. Like, when I made that trailer, it was with intent. And I was thinking about this right before we were going to jump on for this call. And originally this whole project was going to be very much like a promotional type of thing. So when this started, the world was 9 months into COVID.
Yep.
Right. And, or actually, well, excuse me, when the trailer released, the world was 9 months into COVID. So like many other aspects of the job that I had at Lackawanna College at the time, I felt personally responsible, or was made to feel personally responsible for the success of so many programs, football included, and I don't begrudge that, but I think being able to kind of separate myself from the college a little bit and to actually make a thing that was a good thing and not a good promotional thing.
Yeah.
Although it still very much is a good promotional thing, but not with it being the sole intent. I think that made a world of difference.
So I have a lot to say just on that alone, but we're gonna start with this, right? And I want to take over for a moment. You are working on this film nights and weekends.
Mm-hmm.
You cut the trailer.
Not paid for the extra hours.
Yeah, you cut the trailer 9 months later, but that you're also kind of in it, seeing what you have, and
well, 9 months into the pandemic, so almost a year after.
A year after the game.
Yeah.
And you and I talk every day. We talk
multiple times a day.
Every morning we talk at least every day, every morning.
Yeah, it's like the old telecommute when I used to work in journalism.
So, And look, for a very long time, we have helped each other on whatever it happened to be. My blog, your business, my business, the podcast, graphic.
All the way back to your capstone.
Yep. So everything, right? And so
20 years of this shit together.
So I'm here.
And you keep coming back.
I know. And so, despite the fact that you don't want me to, as we'll get to in a second, because
Sometimes.
So the way this works is we talk all the time, and I hear you complain about this movie over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, I'm like, dude, can I help you? And you're like, no, nobody can help me. You literally said nobody can help me. This is you saying nobody can help me.
That sounds
so I
accurate.
I literally went, what do you have? And you sent me a little bit of what you had.
Right.
And I went, well, let's just break it down into DVD chapters.
I think at that point, I probably had the opening sequence, which was a cell phone video.
Okay.
The title sequence, and maybe some of the cast of characters at that point. If I'm remembering where I was.
And I mean, because of our conversations and the little you sent me, because you didn't send me everything.
No.
I knew what you had and kind of what you were going for, and I just broke it down into DVD chapters, or what the equivalent of DVD chapters would be. And
Which
I went,
was game-changing.
How about you do it this way?
Oh, my God.
And that was the moment that you, like, basically me...
All the lights went on.
Me putting it into outline form was me putting my foot in the door, and you went, oh, okay, welcome, come in.
Grab a seat, sir. Welcome to the project. And
I haven't asked you this, but I do know that, like, up to that point you would cut things down. So, like, you had a section that was not that what you were going for was not dissimilar to what I organized, right? But you had like, here's 20 minutes, and I said send it to me, and I cut it down. I said this is what you need, bare minimum. Like, you don't need this other stuff or whatever. And I was the first pair of fresh eyes to see the raw cuts.
Yeah.
And what you had put together. And I don't know, because I never stopped to ask. This is one of those things that you and I very rarely get a chance to do. What was it like to get like that outside perspective. You and I ended up creating a system with which to run, make each other laugh, yell at each other, all that kind of stuff. But like in the very beginning, what's it like going from solo project to like, oh, he's actually got some like feedback?
Yeah. I'm not used to that. Because for so many things in my life, and I would say both personally and professionally, my attitude and very often my reality has been, if I don't get it done, nobody else will. Right. Yeah. And so I think because of that, I have a hard time letting people into projects. I obviously trust you inherently. I mean, I think we've talked about this. I wouldn't have attended. I probably wouldn't have made it to my first kid's birth if you didn't let me borrow your Jeep in college.
Yes.
All right. So there's an inherent trust between you and I, but we've never done anything. We've always done things in a professional manner, but we've never done things professionally.
That's true. We've always
together, like we've helped each other with the businesses and things like that. But they were always everything always felt like it could never get out of startup phase.
I think the other piece to it was, we never thought about the end. Like if you look at everything you and I have ever done outside of this film, we've only ever done open-ended things. When you start a business, you don't start it with an end in mind. I started a blog not knowing when it would end. This podcast not knowing when it would end. You started the Twitch stuff. You were doing DeviantArt, and we were building websites and stuff. All of these things are small projects, but they're all ongoing. None of them are ever like, sometimes they stop or they pause or they hiatus, but they don't ever really end. This was the first thing we've ever undertaken that was not going to go on for, like,
we had to finish the damn thing.
Well, and even if like, and I say this because it's done, like even if it had taken us another year, there was an end in sight. Like there was always an end in sight. It's not like this, the other things we just mentioned where they're all open-ended, right? And that for you and me, like that was a huge difference because like
big moment
there. I don't. Okay, I'm skipping to the end for a second. So we finished this, and I go, yes. So what's next?
Yeah, you fucker.
because we always do these open-ended things, so there always is.
You didn't even give me like, it's okay, Tony, you can rest now. Like you didn't even give me my I barely took a breath, and you were like, so a fiction?
Yep.
Like
yep. Scripted, right? But I mean, the point is, this was the thing that we can say, like, this was the big project. We can do one-off big thing. I think we always knew we could do the ongoing thing because we're in it all the time. We can do it.
Because the ongoing you can chunk out. The ongoing you can do in pieces, and ongoing means you keep going. You don't have to. I guess what's kind of nice about ongoing is you can change the goalposts. Yeah. And you can always move the chains. Here I am talking fucking football metaphors, Jesus. But we always move the chains because the world around us continues to
and
shift.
We want to change. Like
we know that. I mean, I think you're a little closer, but we're almost in our 40s.
Yeah.
So staying relevant and staying informed and staying talented are critical right now because when you look at some of the landscape, I know that there's a lot of folks that are worried about like the creep of AI and what I think assisted creating is helpful.
Yep.
But there's always got to be somebody to do the thing.
Yeah,
and I don't want to get into a do the thing.
No, but you and I have never been afraid of it, and that's how we end up here, right? Because you jumped in, and you had, whether you believe it or not, and I know your connection to Lackawanna, and that's a very different animal, but you had many opportunities to walk away if you had wanted to.
From the college or from the movie?
From the movie. You had opportunity.
Yeah, but
you
it goes
didn't
back
see
to
them.
how I started.
Okay.
In saying that if I didn't do it, nobody was going to do it.
Yes, but the point is, like, you could have walked away if they really wanted it. They could have gotten somebody, et cetera, et cetera. But
well, yeah, because I quit the college for another job 3.5 months before this movie debuted.
Yep. Now,
but the right thing to do was to finish it.
Well, yeah,
and there's a whole hero complex discussion we get into there. Because
I mean, so I knew. So you introduced the movie at the premiere we were at.
Yeah.
And
I need to say that I need to repeat this because it's the God's honest truth. I said that this movie would not exist without me, but it certainly would not exist without you as well.
Well, and I will say I don't think it exists without your connection to the college. And I'm not talking about your employment connection to the college. I'm talking about your dad being there and your sister being there and you being there. This was part of the reason why some of the discussions you and I had while making the movie was, Chris, you need to tell a good story. You don't need to shine the college in the best light all the time.
Right.
And it was...
even in doing so, we did a fantastic job.
But it was almost one of those things like, it's one of those things that I think producers or directors, people that are assisting, right, that are facilitating like the actors on screen or the person recording the material or whatever, like you tell them things that they know, but they need to hear. Like, I don't think you needed to be told this can be a great movie and we can show some of the warts. Like, that's fine. But you needed to hear that because, like, you're in a certain
there were definitely moments where I was worried about how to shine it. Yeah. And I think if you for anybody who does get a chance to watch this, and I'm hoping after May, the college usually has a spring game in May. I'm hoping after May we can put this out to the masses.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of any questions you have, but I have things I'd like to see done with it. But it does have its warts. Mm-hmm. It is a nicer version of Last Chance U for anybody who likes those sort of junior college football stories, but it's still a junior college football story. And there's rough language.
Yeah.
There's an entire sequence that, like, you can't hear half of what people are saying because I had to bleep out so much.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just, but
it's real. It's very real.
And I liked the authenticity of it. And I think part of the amazing thing to me in working on this with you was your foresight. And I think if I had been there from the beginning, I think I would have only tweaked about 2 things as far as the things you shot. But outside of that, you shot almost everything you could. And I think that it gave us not necessarily that much more to work with, but we were flexible in the things we could do.
Yeah, I mean, I did the math at one point. I think when you add in the actual footage of the game itself, the actual broadcast that we got permission from the National Junior College Athletic Association and CBS Sports vicariously to use, when you add that to my footage and the GoPro footage that the kids shot before I even set foot in Kansas, there's 19 total hours of footage, 19 to 19 and a half total hours of footage.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I was one guy on my feet for 3 days.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of the fact that from the point where the kids, the the coaching staff is eating breakfast, to the point where,
the game kicks off.
The game starts.
Yeah.
I think there might be 4 shots in that hour that aren't mine.
Yeah, there's a couple that we could tell are GoPro stuff,
Yeah.
But otherwise it's yours. And, that was a lot of your old journalism. I feel like background coming in of
shot, I shot everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't look away. I looked for things that were happening when people weren't paying attention. One of my favorite sequences in the film itself is during their last practice, and it's the two kickers on the sideline just shooting the shit with each other. And it's a very real conversation. They're not having it because I'm filming them. I'm filming them because they're having it. Yeah. And I think that's why some of the audio's kind of shitty in that section. Because like I was like, look at these two wild creatures talking about their football game. You know, like it was. I was, God, what a beauty. It's and so it is. There's an authenticity to it because all these kids know is how to be real.
Yeah,
and a lot of what makes life livable for these kids is junior college football. But like, I love that sequence, and I also remember vividly at the end of the game. Spoiler alert: the Lackawanna College does not win the 2019 NJCAA football championship. Spoiler. Google it. Sorry. But I remember very clearly. And it was, so there's a shot in the movie where one of the players is like, pick your head up. We still got time. There was like 4 minutes left in the game. So we got time. You were telling me in the first half, we got time. And it's in the film. And I love that moment. But I remember there was probably about 2 minutes left in the game. And the quarterbacks and specialists coach wife was taking photos on the sideline. And I met her before kickoff. So I had known her all of 30 seconds, 2.5 hours ago. And I flagged her down. I said, Mars, I said, whatever happens, don't stop shooting. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, we're at a point now where we are past promotion and we are documenting this. I said, we have a hometown newspaper back home that is looking for photos from us.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, we're going to be at least the front page of the sports section. Shoot everything that happens, even if it doesn't feel good to shoot it.
And at this point, you're still a member of the college communications staff as you're shooting it. So, like, that's an important thing for you to do.
Journalism wire kickback.
Well, and you've got a video camera, not a still camera. She's got the still camera. So it makes a difference for you to say that as opposed to, man, although I would have loved to watch you double barrel the thing with like a still camera and a video camera trying to.
Just put the symbols between my legs for crying out loud.
So,
but I remember that moment, and that's a moment that I only had with her, but I remember it. And I mean, the action shots that we sent to the paper were very much what you would expect football action shots to look like. But I think if I remember correctly, there's a photo of one of the kids. He's got crazy long hair. I think it's Jael. No, I think of it. And his teammate he's got his hand extended. He's pulling him up after these kids are just destitute after losing this game. And I don't know if she would have taken that photo if I didn't say, don't stop shooting.
That's fair.
And I mean, for the whole 3 days I was there, I did not stop shooting. So I had to make sure, and this is the other thing, I had to make sure somebody else did the job that I would have done. Because if I were doing photos,
that's what you would have done.
I would have taken those shots. Yeah. You know, they're not flattering, but sometimes the warts are pretty. I mean, so I have a couple questions for you. The first is going into look, I know you're a Giants fan. Yeah. But you don't have a college football team. You're not. I do. I have many. You don't have a college football team. Do you have a? Do I now? I think I do now. Well, that wasn't going to be the question. Was, like, how much have you learned about football? Like, because even knowing you're a Giants fan, I don't know you to be a person that sits down on Sunday for 4 hours. So, like, I know going through some of the stuff, right? Like, and I have the ability to get. I have a podcast. Hi, verbose, right? Like I can, but you verbose. So I would tell you things. I edit your blog, sir. Like I would tell you things that like I was part of the education, I think a little bit. Yeah. But like, I don't know. Do you understand why I spend 12 hours watching college football on Saturdays now a little bit? I understand why. I don't understand how. Okay, that's fine. And it's not for lack of love of the game. I wish I had that much time on a Sunday.
Well, I mean, I'm doing
envious.
I'm doing other things.
I know it's always in your periphery, but
Yeah.
even still, I'm amazed at the ability to have 12 hours of entertainment uninterrupted on the periphery, because I live in a house with 4 people who love TV and to relax, and I don't know how to do that.
But you now have not only a movie, but an experience with the reason people fall in love with sport, period. Right? It doesn't matter what the sport is. Like,
well,
this
yeah,
just
but
happens to be about...
we talked about this often, because we consciously, as we got into this, we consciously didn't make just a football movie.
Yeah, because
we talked story all the time, because, and I talked about this when we premiered it in October. You know, a lot of people, even just locally, take the quality of Lackawanna College football for granted. And they give a shit when these kids go to West Virginia and Penn State and, you know, all these wonderful 4-year schools. There's nothing wrong with these 4-year schools, don't get me wrong. But these kids play for, I think you can get into the stadium for $5 on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah.
And it's the same kids that are going to end up at Penn State. So, you know, if you start hearing chatter about them, you could have access to them. And I wanted people to appreciate this team as much as I tried to appreciate all of those students when I was an employee there, and as much as I appreciated being a student when I was a student at Lackawanna.
Okay. I mean, look, I
think it rings true. I think it comes out.
But I think the other reason, and I'll be selfish for a moment. One of the other reasons that I focused on story, was
you knew I could tell a story. You didn't think I could tell a football story, probably.
It was also 2. There were 2 real reasons why I was very important. It was very important for me that we focus on story.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother and my mother, because they're proud of us and they want to see what we can do. And I didn't want to put out a movie that neither of them would understand. Like, it was very important to me that as non-sports people, your mother and my mother can watch this and appreciate it, regardless of the football aspect of it. And that was important to me.
Well, I will add 2 more, which are my 2 kids. One of which said, I sat through an entire documentary and you did a great job. And the other said, I sat through a football documentary and you did a great job. But it's hard to keep a 13-year-old's attention on something other than Minecraft and Cookie Clicker, apparently. And you know, my 19-year-old is not your typical 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And so and they were never sports minded, and for them to sit through a football documentary and maybe not be enriched by it, but be engaged with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, so...
Because for 7 months, my family heard me say, thanks for dinner, I'm going to go work on the movie.
Well, that was because... So there's a piece to this, right? Like, obviously, this movie didn't happen overnight. It took years to make.
Many nights.
But the last 7 months up to finishing the final draft was... us talking in the morning, and then so we going tonight? So is it?
Yeah,
we going tonight?
We're gonna. And most days it was a yeah. I would say almost every day it was a yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even until the end where we started to have, you know what you need to do. You don't need me there.
Yeah. And that was like YouTube shorts and TikToks. And,
yeah. So you made the movie.
I did.
And is it ever going to feel real?
Oh, it's real.
Okay.
It's real. I mean, we, there's some tweaks, as we're discussing this, there's some tweaks that I still need to make to the IMDb page and stuff like that. But we have an IMDb page.
Yeah, I know.
For a documentary that we made. And I'm the director and you're the executive producer. And nobody at the Internet Movie Database questioned the validity of that. Which I don't know if that's good for us or bad for them, but it's there. It exists. And it's wild because I need to add that to my LinkedIn profile because that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
And I have an associate degree in communications and I didn't go to film school. I think I've and I think you'll agree to this. I think I've always both enjoyed and had a knack for telling other people's stories. And I think that's why this works.
I mean, so I will say, biographically, you had that before you became a journalist.
Well, maybe.
I would say that. As somebody who knew you before that career took off,
yeah,
you could tell a story.
As a constantly sleeping fine art student, you saw that in me. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Just give me a yes or no.
Like, yeah, we had long conversations into the night, and then you fell asleep at 3 o'clock instead of staying up. I stayed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you always had that, and I think what journalism did is it refined that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you were able to tell better stories, but you could always tell good stories to begin with, and so. Mm-hmm. Does this surprise me? Not really. I mean, because the other thing is, you go back to helping me with my capstone. It's not like you were an improv and you did some theater in high school, but it's not like you and I knew what we were doing as far as recording audio and narrating stuff. And that original is rough, and that's why I redid it for this podcast. But at the same time,
a college senior project, it was good.
It was good, but it was also. I was a communications major, not a radio I wasn't in multimedia. Like
right.
And you were in communications, but you weren't really in multimedia.
Well, not even at that point.
No.
I mean, I was a fine art major.
So you and I have, I think, gotten to a point, even back in college, where we were willing to jump off into the pool even if we'd never swam in it. So whether it was Jello or water or like soda, like it doesn't matter.
What's the non-Newtonian fluid? I can't even think of it. Just the cornstarch and water. You slap it.
But whatever it is, like we're willing to take a chance,
a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you and I don't know if it's generational, but I know certainly you and I were willing to take the risk because we know that there's an opportunity to learn even through failure.
Well, that's
and probably more through failure.
Well, and you and I have been with each other through a lot of those failures. So we've learned from it. And I think that the odd part about this podcast and us us since we finished it is because, as I talked about earlier, we have all these ongoing projects. We usually only quote unquote debrief after the failures. Right, like we've
never talked about it successfully before.
Like it's so not a normal thing for us to do that.
But we're successful.
No, I don't.
When we go with the success, we go, great. What's next?
Which is
exactly what you did to me.
That's exactly it, that it is.
I know,
right?
I know.
But I think the other thing about me going, what's next is. Because this was a victory, but I want it to be a building block for us. I don't want this to be let's put it this way. And this is the crappy metaphor everybody uses, but I don't want this to be the top of the mountain for us.
No. And I think that's the blessing and the curse of having you as a friend and a collaborator is you're never satisfied, and I think you also see me better than I see myself. So the drive is always there, even if I'm like, I just worked, I just had 2 press conferences today, and I got to do this thing, and nobody did the dishes, and I got to do that, and this one needs a uniform tomorrow, and that one's got work 2 days from now, and like I think I get crushed by the minutia in my life, but you always go, you can do it.
Well, don't forget, and this is something that has been our dynamic for forever, which is I always want to go, and you're like, hold up.
No, it's not that you always want to go. It's that you've already gone and you're 2 weeks ahead of me. You've drawn the map and you go, come on. I'm going on an adventure.
well, it's kind of what I did for stringing you along to finish the film at this point is the other thing. Cause I rode you, we made the map and I went,
You
all
drew
right,
the
this
map.
is what we're
It
going
was
to do.
just a Google sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out well. I think the processes that we created,
what's cool about the processes that we created is that anybody could do what we did.
anybody could. Yeah, no, I mean, we're talking about a fact that, yes, you and I are only 90 minutes away, but 90 minutes or 3 hours both ways is a very long commitment if you're going to do it on a daily basis. So it was just video conferencing and screen sharing every night.
We screen shared over Discord. We made notes in Google Sheets. I would share like rough cuts over unlisted YouTube videos with you so you could see what I was working on. Like if I was working without you, like there was a system and there was methodology. And what's cool is nobody taught us how to do it, and we figured it out as we went, as we have with so many other things that we've done both creatively and personally and professionally. And anybody could do it. Like I found out recently that somebody that I used to work with might be writing a book, and I don't want to get into whom or about what.
Okay.
But our first collective reaction was on what?
Yeah.
Like on what? Like you and I could probably write a well-detailed blog that would serve somebody better about how we made a movie over Discord and Google Docs.
Well, and that's the thing too, is
we made our own frame.io because we have no budget.
Well, and what's funny is you get to become Kevin Smith for a while, right? Because the Kevin Smith's big speech, and I find the irony in this is probably just because it's Kevin Smith. Like the Vancouver Film School invites him back every year to speak, and he stands up in front of those students and he says, "You don't need to be here to make a movie."
And we proved that.
And we
hypothesis.
proved that, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't go to film school. We didn't even study film.
No. When I studied communications, I had, I think, a video production 1 and a video production 2 and 1 audio production course.
And that puts you miles ahead of me as far as formal education, because I didn't do any of that. I think I may have taken...
The fact that you put out a podcast every 2 weeks is a miracle.
Well, you learn as you go, right? Like, and,
oh my God.
I mean, and look, I got to practice on a lot of other people's shows, right? Like, and that's as jokey as that is, like I was quote unquote an intern on some of those other things. So I got to learn all the things, right? And if nothing else, our entire collaboration since the very beginning has always been a learn by doing mentality.
Oh yeah. Like I almost wish Google Sheets or Google Docs existed 20 years ago, because the amount of don't fuck it up, but here's how we did lessons that we could tell. I mean, come on. Yeah. And it's silly, right? Like I think about some of the stuff that I was doing, when I was at Lackawanna, and like fillable forms, right? Never had to make a fillable PDF form before. A 15-minute YouTube video, and now it's a part of my repertoire. Yeah. Like the amount of things that you could learn to do if you pay attention to the right corners of the internet are incredible.
Yeah.
Now, but we'll get into. Well,
what I was going to say is you don't even have to pay attention to the internet. Like if you just pick up something and do it, right? Like, and this is the thing,
right?
The reason that I am in the minority of podcasters using a Windows product is because GarageBand came it doesn't anymore, but GarageBand came standard. So the quote unquote fuck around and find out was mainly Apple people that plugged a mic in, could hit record and could edit with built-in software. Well, now you use whatever you use, but it's that mentality of like, well, let's just try it. Let's just
figure it out.
see what happens, right?
And, what does this button do? You know, that is our entire. That would be the book. What does this button do? Well, Lessons in Failure from Jason Stershik and Christopher J.
Well,
Hughes.
and it was funny too because like I remember, you had done some stuff in video, but it's not like we were experts in Premiere or Audition going into this. Right. So there was also a learning curve where like, I remember I got a crash course in Audition for something else. Yeah. Right. And I had learned that you can keybind to select from where you are all the way to the end. And I was like, we need to learn how to do this in Premiere.
Magic. It's the A button, everybody. If you're in Premiere and you want to select everything from where you're at to the end of the GD timeline, it's the A button.
I mean,
hit A and click.
It was
magic.
It saved the movie would still be in production.
I had worked on the movie for 6 months before we figured that out together.
And we'd still be doing it now if you were moving every.
Yeah, because I'd zoom all the way out and you do the selection cue with oh my goodness gracious, what the hell was I doing? Even just stupid things, right? So like I knew this going into the movie, but like stupid things like if you hit the L button twice on your keyboard, it does play, and then it's 2 times speed, and then it's 4 times speed, and then when it gets to 8 times speed, you can't hear anything anymore because it would just destroy your ears. Yeah. But and then K is pause and J is backwards. Oh, magic! That was, and I blame the pandemic in part for pushing the movie back almost 3 years, but it worked out because it's the 30th year of Lackawanna football. But because of the pandemic, the Adobe Max conference that goes on every year went virtual in 2020 and 21 and had virtual components that were still free in 2022. And I sign up every year and I gather all this. I'm like a loot goblin. I gobble up all the stuff that I can, and I might save a couple of videos here and there. But you know, I learn those shortcuts from people who know better, and then they become part of my repertoire. I think the problem is trying to make what you know like proprietary paywalled knowledge.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to share the process because the process is mine, and nobody should. No, these tools exist. I made an entire. I've made stuff for your partner.
Yeah.
In After Effects, completely sitting here in this chair on a computer that our college friend helped me build with no proper training in motion design whatsoever.
Well, and I think the difference is that, and I'm going to say this right now categorically, and people can write me emails, whatever. I think
tweet the show at the Palmer Files on Twitter.
I believe that most people that create good content can find a way to monetize the good content. Most people who monetize processes can't make good content.
Oh yeah, no, there's those who can't teach.
Yeah,
line there,
and I,
which is not true.
It's not
always true.
No, it's not as universal. But one of the things is, I've never met a creator, and this includes you, but I can discount you because you're my friend. I've never met a creator who's been like, hell no, I won't help you with that. Like, I had somebody, a creator bigger than me, give me a crash course in Audition for when I switched over, right? And that helped us with the movie because I was learning all these things, and I was learning by doing, and I was being helped. And if you've listened to the podcast for any period of time, you've heard authors talk about other authors helping them, and podcasters having other podcasters help them. And I've been around long enough to help people. People may be like, you don't make a lot of money, this isn't your date. Like, no, but I'm willing to help because I've learned things and go right.
Yeah.
And oh man, like
I'm the kind of person that I want everybody to be able to do cool shit.
I want them to create the thing, right? Like you and I.
Well, yeah. How many we've talked about this because I had it like your closes and you're open for the podcast, and we came to the conclusion not yesterday, but recently, that. And you even consciously came to it. Yeah, I have to stop telling people to make the thing.
Yeah, because like whenever I have a creator on, it's so easy for me to listen and then start writing like, do the thing.
Made the thing.
Do
you
the
make
thing.
the thing.
Make the thing.
Ninja made the thing. Go make the thing.
Yeah. And like I'll probably still include it every few just to encourage my audience, but like I think every episode could be. Go do the thing.
We're
right?
just we're gonna start a new one, you and I, called "Go Make the Thing." Maybe that's our next project. Go Make the Thing, a Palmer Files production.
I mean, it's weird because people, are like, "Did you really help?" I'm like, "Yeah, I helped."
Yeah, oh my
because
God.
I give you all the credit. Like, in fact, I and you
I
should
clicked
get it.
the buttons.
You should get all the credit. But like, as I joke with people, look at the movie poster. There's 6 names on there, and I'm 2 of them.
Yep, and I'm the other 4. And and we talked on this. I want to touch on this for a minute, but at one point you tried to convince me to narrate it. Yeah. And on a documentary film poster, there's no cast because it's just real people, and it would have had to have said my name again. So I would have been 5 for 7.
Well, and that's the other thing. You and I, when we did, because obviously this is our first movie of any, so we were going through the credits going like, well, we can't list every job we had because.
Yeah, I would have needed a longer song.
Well, and it would have just like turned into like a word jumble, like because if you see the same word after so many times,
right? Our names would no longer have made sense in the course of the English language.
Yeah, it would just be like, what is going on? So we picked the ones we wanted, right?
The major roles.
But there were a lot of other things that we could have, and then we would have changed the movie poster, and then instead of having 6 names, it would have been like 18. And we still would have been like 12 and 6 of them.
Yeah, I was going to say 10 and 8, but yeah, sure. but that's the beauty of this thing. Like
you can do it with 2 people. I think that's the other thing, right? Like
I was gonna say, this is as like renegade as it gets. Now, like, granted, when I filmed it, I was employed by the institution that it's about, and when I was editing, 70% of it, I was still employed by that institution. But when it came down to it, nobody was standing over me. I actually had a marketing director that was like. And he was like this sort of like rough and tumble guy. And when I would tell him that I was working on this thing, why are you doing that? What's that? What's this project? We had a system called Function Fox that would allow us to track projects. He goes, what is this for athletics? This football movie. And I was like, oh, that's the documentary that I filmed in 2019. He's like, that's not important. I need banners for the main building. And we need billboards for spring and summer, and
but you know what? This is the thing for you. Like all credit to you, because even before I joined the picture, you kept the light of the flame of light, right? Like you just kept it going little by little. Even if you only got to it once a week for a while, you still kept it going.
My better judgment, and probably to the detriment of my own health at sometimes, but we did. We kept it going.
But at a certain point, this will be. We still look back now. It hasn't been out for that long, like as far as like out in the ether, right? But like, I still think back and laugh. Like I can't help but think about like, just because we worked. Like our average starting time was 9:30,
9 o'clock.
Yeah,
like the interesting thing.
So I just think about laughter because, like, at a certain point, because like here's the thing: I may not be employed full time, but I still get up or in the morning just like you.
And get up as if you were, yeah.
When it's 9 o'clock, or if we start at 10, we're 14 hours awake at least.
Yeah, minimum.
And so I remember going through serious things with you and just like, it just takes one thing to set you off and you're just done for a bit.
I'm done. We're done. I can't anymore. I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally.
I always look
tired.
back at this with a smile on my face because I don't see, and I know you and I did some voice raising at times.
Oh, we definitely didn't agree on every decision.
No. But
and I was a stubborn bitch sometimes.
Well.
But you let me when I explained why.
Well,
you kind of let me.
I also like, and I could say this now. Like I gave you some that I just was like, I'll save it for the next one because I got a few points that I want to argue, and that one's not nearly as important as the next one. I'll give him this one.
Right. But so like what's interesting though, like you want to talk timeline, right? So one of the things that I didn't know about this team, and they talk about it a lot. So the football team itself doesn't have their own facility, right? So we rent from the local school district. And so in order to get time, sometimes you're waiting for a track meet to end or a soccer game to end under the lights. And similar to the way you and I would have to work, we would have to go through the business of the day, and then this team sometimes wouldn't get on the field for a 2-hour practice until 10 o'clock. They'd be bussing them back and traveling them in 12 and 15 passenger vans in groups at midnight, because that's the obstacle that one of many obstacles that those kids had to overcome. And that's what I think I appreciate more about this team. I've always known about Lackawanna College football, but I think learning the actual genuine struggles that these kids have to deal with in order to be able to practice and play well and then get up the next day and go to class. Like, those are the little things that I think I'm going to keep for a long, long time. So
so you made a movie be responded by you with, yes, I did, instead of I can't, but like, when does the I can't believe it wear off? Like
as soon as I can stream it.
Okay.
Like, cause I'm the type of self-promotional jerk that, like, I'll get business cards with a QR code printed on the back and go, scan this and go watch the documentary that I made. Cause like I'm creative in my self-promotion and things like that. But I think until a lot of people can see it, it feels real and it's done, and other people who never saw a piece of it have seen it, and so it's real, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that I've done it, but I want more people to see it. I think that's the one thing that I'm missing in terms of achievement.
Okay.
You know, it's never going to have like a box office return or any kind of bullshit like that, but like, I would like more people to experience it so that they understand why I put so much time into it. Like, there was another thing that was happening at the college shortly after we premiered the movie. We got no press. But I'm going to retract that. I got to be on the college's sports weekly sports video, and I got some help from the local public access channel, but I got no attention from any local TV, local newspaper, nothing. And the college was doing something else completely not related to athletics, and not only got a blog from the local paper, but got like a full bylined article as well. Two things for something not related to athletics, something that doesn't bring a couple $1 million worth of revenue in tuition and housing to the school every year for 30 years. I mean, the reason Lackawanna College has residence halls is because of a football team.
Yeah.
And something that might not work got a full blog and a full byline article. And I was a little insulted by that. I'm not going to lie. I don't. And I think that's where the personal connection to the college comes in. Cause I go, I've been here. I'm a product of this place. I've worked on this thing on and off for 3 years. it was a 2-man show. I have often referred to it as my opus, because until a bigger project comes, it will be.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, and this is, I touched on this a little as we got started, but like, I would like to enter it into a film festival.
Yeah.
And I would like to maybe screen it at the local drive-in, because we have a connection there. And there's a little independent theater up in Tunkhannock, which is about 20-25 minutes up the road from me. And I'd like to maybe get it there. And I want people to experience it. And maybe there is a piece of me that needs that for validation for all the toil of the project. But I think it deserves it too. Like there's so much into it, and it's so very personal, and you and I laugh because it's still impacting my vocabulary and how we reference things. Like you and I reference Marvel movies, and now I reference this movie.
Well, but I think it also goes to the fact that, like, I'm the one hitting publish on the blog and the podcast 6 times a month. And so I'm used to that thing's finished and moving on. And so I don't have a mindset other than what's next.
That's and maybe that's why I need the attention, because we finished the thing.
Yeah. I mean, because right? And it's also why my first thing was what's next. Because I know that my blog posts get read and my podcast get listened to. I don't care how many. If it's just one, that's enough for me, right? But
and maybe I'll feel better when we can stream this thing, whether it be a streaming service or YouTube, and I can see views.
Yeah, and perhaps that's enough. But I'm just saying, like,
it might be.
At a certain point, I'm excited to ask you. So you made a movie, and you'd be like, yeah, I did. Because I still think that even in the early days when we start putting it out to the public, you're still going to be like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it'll feel really good, but it's funny, right? Like, so I'm applying all of the things. The one thing that I would have improved about the movie itself is the sound quality. It was literally me running around with like a Sennheiser or a Rode shotgun mic attached to an XLR plugged into an 1/8-inch mic jack. Like, you would not believe the setup that actually made this movie. It would make a trained professional cry. And
see,
it probably
you say
should.
that, but I don't think it would.
Well, it's very renegade.
I think it would impress them, because I've talked to.
It might.
Having been there in podcasting.
Yeah.
When I made the switch from Audacity to Audition, and I sent over some stuff I had done in Audacity.
Somebody probably said, you did this in Audacity?
They were like so impressed by what I did with those tools. They're like, you did.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Right. So I think that there's a part of it where people that know will probably just be more impressed by how little we actually had to work with.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's funny now, like, so some of the things that I'm doing professionally for my day job, I'm shooting with a DSLR because I've got better control over light and all this kind of depth of field and all this wonderful stuff. But I still need better mics. So like this week I was looking at like wireless receivers and lav mics and things like that. So I'm like, oh, do I want to spend like,
but you and I have always
$200?
Been great at application for the next thing. Like we've never.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think it goes back to like, okay, these are the flaws. Like, so, you know, so what does this button do? Like, how do I make the next thing better?
Yep. Or
I'm very proud of never being satisfied with my work.
Well, I think
because it makes you want to be better all the time.
I think the other thing is we've always wanted to make it easier so we could do better, because easier just means you have more time for the details.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's funny, right? So I actually today I bumped into my old video and audio production professor, right? Just on a literally, I didn't tell you about this, but I bumped into him on accident, and we were joking. I know, and he was like, "Oh my god, you made the movie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "And it's all the stuff you told me, and it's all the things that I learned when I was a journalist, and it's all those pieces that come together." And I was like, "The only thing that's changed is the render times are better." And he laughed, and I was like, it took 45 minutes to export an 88-minute movie. I was like, that shit would have taken 6 days when you were teaching me back in 2005 at Lackawanna College. He's like, yeah, he's like, you would have had to do 1-to-1 tape to digital transfers. And I was like, yeah, I moved 16 gig worth of footage in 3 minutes, like it. And you laugh at how the technology makes it easier, but like, I think that the tech making it easier makes it somewhat more salvageable for guys like you and I to say, okay, how do we make it better?
Yeah, because
how do we make it better for us?
Well,
right?
How do we make it better for us so we can tell a better story? I mean, look,
because the one thing you want is like, you don't want a bad shot or bad audio to detract from a product.
Or you want to be able to focus on some of the other things because that's taken care of.
Yeah.
Is the other piece.
There's one, I can't remember what organization it is, but they've got this like, it's like this skeleton, like sitting in a computer, lead a bag, and he's shouting and just fix it in pre. Like that's who I am. I would like to be able to hand over the pre-processed stuff to anybody and have them go, this is great. I don't have to do a goddamn thing.
And that's why we work together, because I have no problem fixing it in post.
Right. But there's magic in both, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Because I don't know if we could hand over the I don't even know the math anymore. I think it was 160 some gig. I think there was 2,200 files. We could hand over the 2,200 files that actually went into making this project and give it to somebody else, and they could tell a story, and it might be a better story. It might not. They might attach themselves to pieces that we didn't. We laugh at how often the broadcast talks about how the quarterback used to be a hockey player. It's like it was the chorus of the broadcast because it was such an unusual thing. We laugh about it, but like, you could give all this stuff to somebody else and say, all right, what do you want to make with it? But if I could go back and improve anything, it would be the sound quality.
Yeah, we did the best we could with what we had.
We did a bang-up job. You came, you slept at my house for 3 days over Labor Day weekend and fixed the whole damn thing.
And it's I think that's the more unbelievable part for me. For me, like, I mixed a movie. Like, what?
Yeah, you mixed it.
I have no, outside of this podcast, I have no qualification for it. Other than I can.
But I was going to say, because of the podcast, you have the ability to apply that to a movie.
And that's the thing. You talk about applying it to your day job. Like, this is who we've always been. And I feel like it's the reason that I can say, like, what's next to you. Right. Like, it's of course it was too soon to ask you that. Yeah. But that will never stop me.
Deep, Jay.
I will always ask you what's next. Always. There will always.
And that's why this works. That's why the friendship works. We talked about it, I think, during the friendship episode too, when we go back. But like, where we're always pushing not just ourselves, but each other. Right. We're always on the lookout. We're always trying to figure it out. But like, I was looking at, like I said, I was looking at wireless receivers, and I was like, I can't wait to show up to, I have to interview a business owner for a whole series of things that are going on with my day job. And because he's trying to redo his building with some of the grant money that we've got out. I don't want to get too much into my job right now, but I can't wait to show up with like a DSLR and a tripod and a little tiny light and this awesome wireless microphone that I'm just going to clip to the guy and go, okay, tell me about your building. This is, what is it? Why are you redoing it? And why is this important? And why are you getting involved? And I can't wait. And I'm going to also interview that professor that I ran into today, because he's doing this great project with food insecurity, and he's teaming up with another agency in town. And I can't wait to show up and clip a microphone to him and have him go, oh my God, like I taught you all this stuff. Like, to share the the joy of storytelling and you know, the good things that are happening around you. I think that maybe that's the hook, right? Like, Lackawanna College has been playing football for 30 years, and they've, to borrow a phrase, they've been slept on, you know? And so I think telling this story my way and our way, and without it being an 88-minute commercial for the college, I think is probably the most, that's why to date, it's one of the most important things I've ever done creatively.
We didn't have any qualification other than what we've learned from what we've done. What we did know is that win or lose, we had a great story to tell. The hardest part was suspending the reality of knowing the outcome of the game to tell the best story. But it was equally hard to find the heart of the story to make people care about this team, a team that most people even in the area aren't aware of. However, we are storytellers. We're not bards, though we'd probably like to be. We are storytellers. And this was a story worth telling. It came to us as a massive amount of digital data that we sifted through and sorted through to create something cohesive. This is what we did have experience doing. Most of our projects are either make something from this mess or make something from nothing, the rest you figure out. In your own experiences, do you prefer making something from nothing or creating something beautiful out of the chaos? Let us know. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files, episode 88. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact myself and my guest, Christopher J. Hughes, in the show notes. There, you will also find a link to the trailer of They Sleep on Us, and eventually links to where you can view the full documentary, or maybe they're there now if you're listening to this in the future. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com, and remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Chris, do you have one final question for me?
Yeah. So we made a movie.
Yeah.
What do you want to do next?
I mean, it's creatively, right? It's a very weird question for me, okay? Because I do the blog and I do the podcast, and that's what I create. And when it comes to bigger projects, I help you with the movie, obviously. I edited a book of poetry, and I'm in the process of editing another book of poetry for the same author, and I will literally kick his ass to make sure that I get to edit his novel, which has been drafted, and it's just about drafting it again, right? And I'm working.
That's new information to me too, because I know the author. But yeah. Keep going.
So I'm also helping someone. I'm reading a rough, what I will call rough thoughts from another friend who's thinking about creating a memoir, and I want to help them kind of facilitate that.
But what do you want to do with me next?
Okay, well then
that's a different question.
That's a different question, right? So, but I feel like it's whatever you want to do. Like, and this is what this the reason I list all that stuff, right? Because like I'm
right.
I feel like, despite the blog and the podcast, I still look at myself as the man in the chair and not the man.
Oh, you are totally my Ned.
So in that regard, what's next? It's the book of poetry. It's potentially the novel. It's potentially a memoir, and it's whatever you bring to me. Like I'm here for it. And like I've talked on the show about maybe dabbling into video, and really it's just a means to learning to apply it to other things. It's not really because I yearn to be in video, right? Like it's just another skill to add to the quiver. But for me, what's next is whatever, honestly, it's, you and I talk every day, and a lot of the time we talk about what's bothering us or what we're working on right now. But sometimes we do get those moments where nothing's going on. We just throw shit at the wall. And whatever's next will come from whatever sticks in the long haul. Yeah. And that's the truth is I'm okay with whatever it is. I joke that it should be fiction because we'll be able to control the narrative, which is not something we could do with the documentary. The documentary was tell the story. This is how it begins and this is how it ends. Yeah. Enjoy getting people from A to B. I like the idea that you can
So you would craft a story.
I would love the idea of us to start with a straight up writer's room and go from there.
Fair. Now, well, if you decide to get into video, I know a guy who made a movie.